Chullin Daf Kuf Yud Aleph. Abai had a suffix. A kosher liver that's cooking in a pot with another piece of meat, does the blood of the liver go out into the other piece of meat and make it treif? So Rav Zreika says, I could testify that Yehuda, the son of Shimon ben Pazi, gave us a trachea with all the pieces attached to it, the heart, the lung, the liver. As you can see, Rav Amitai ben David, the Mechaber of Sichas Chullin, gave us just 2 weeks ago a demonstration, and he's holding in his hand the kana with all the yummy pieces. So the Gemara says, well, maybe it's different. Maybe the top of the trachea was hanging out of the pot, and therefore all the blood came out of the liver, and there's no blood left in the liver. There's another way to get the blood out of the liver, or to keep the blood in the liver, and that's called nechlat chaluta, to sear the blood in. You can either do it according to Rav Huna by dipping the liver right into boiling hot water, so that seals the blood in, or you could dip it into vinegar, and that seals the blood in. The Gemara wanted to say that when you seal the liver in vinegar, some of the blood goes out into the vinegar, and in fact, the vinegar becomes also because it has blood in it. Says Rava, that's impossible, because we know that the reason why liver's blood is not aser itself, because once it's busy expelling blood, it's pilot, it's not brilea, it doesn't absorb. So if the vinegar stops the expelling of the blood, so at that point the liver should start absorbing blood, and it should absorb the vinegar and the blood that's inside the vinegar and make the liver aser. Therefore, you see that there's no blood in the vinegar. Rav Nachman said that you have to force feed this Talmud, Rav Bar Shava, who held like the Shita of Rabbi Yishmael ben Eish Rabbi Yechim and Breika, that cooked liver is aser, that it asers itself. Rav Nachman holds like Rabbi Eliezer that it's 100% mutter. So he said you have to force feed him. When Rabbi Bar Rav Huna went to visit Rabbi Bar Rav Nachman, so they brought in front of him 3 savi of sort of like cake. It's bread dipped in honey and cake. And this shear is about 11 pounds in our day. 11 pounds of cake. So he said, all this for me, how did you know I was coming? So he said, we didn't know you were coming. It says in the pasuk, the Karas al Shabbos Oineg, we made this for Shabbos, not for you. But meanwhile, they gave him liver as well. He took one look and he says, Oivei, liver, you're allowed to have the blood within the liver, but you're not allowed to have the blood that's gathered in the blood vessels in the liver. That's aser. So what do? You're supposed to cut it shesi ve'erev, and those cuts should be on the bottoms to let all the blood drain out. It says the Gemara, but a spleen that looks like a liver, has the same coloration as the liver, is not made out of blood like liver. It's actually made out of fat, and Mamela, you're allowed to eat it completely as Shmuel, the day of his bloodletting, would eat spleen. It says the Gemara, there's some that, in those days, the opening of the oven was on top, so they put a skewer, they put a spit top to bottom, and if you have a piece of liver on the top and a piece of meat underneath it, we're not concerned, according to one shita, that the blood from the liver is going to penetrate into the meat, because it just spills right off the meat. And b'diavad, you're allowed to do that. And there's another shita that says b'diavad, you're allowed to take an udder and have the milk spill off onto the piece of meat underneath it. We're not concerned because the milk is on the rabbanon. According to the first shita, that would be aser because milk sticks to the meat. And according to the second shita, the blood from the liver would be aser because there's a lot of blood in the liver, and blood is deraisa. However, the halacha, both of them are aser lechatchila, but the mutter b'diavad. Says the Gemara, Rav Ashi's brother-in-law thought it's mutter lechatchila, and Rav Ashi said he's a balgaiva for doing that. You're allowed to eat if you try to catch fat that comes off meat in a pan underneath the meat. In addition to the fat, you're also going to get some blood, but you're allowed to eat the fat. Why? Because the blood goes down to the bottom. However, says the Gemara, if you try to do the same thing with liver, the blood of the liver doesn't go to the bottom. It kind of floats on the top together with the fat, and it will make the fat aser. Says the Gemara that the heat from the shechita, as we know, shechita causes a lot of heat. That heat makes the knife absorb the blood of the shechita. Therefore, you're not allowed to cut hot food afterwards, because the hot food will absorb the blood that's in the shechita knife. What if you cut something cold? Some say that you have to wash that food off with water. So Shmuel says, if so, salt has the same properties as cooking. It's meliach has a halach of kireiteach. So therefore, if you salt meat, and the purpose of salting meat is to get the blood out of the meat, so the blood will be absorbed into the walls of the pot through the salt, which is reiteach. He also says, kavish k'mevushal. Pickling is like cooking. And we see Rabbi Yechon also holds the same thing, that Rabbi Yochanan's Talmud Rabbi Ami took a kli cheres that they did melichin that absorbed blood through salt, and he broke it. Says the Gemara, what is the nafkamina between a bowl that you salted meat in that you said, we just said it's asur, and a radish that you cut with a fleshik knife that has already absorbed? Why didn't the radish absorb some of the meat from the knife? And why do you say that you're allowed to eat this radish with kutach that's made out of with sour milk? So it's milchiks. Says Abaye one pshat, because the radish, it absorbed a flavor of meat. Meat is mutter. Just afterwards you want to make it also, so mela it's not a problem now. Rava says no. Rava says the pshat is that a radish a Jew can taste because it's meat. Meat Jews can taste. But the dish that you salted meat in, you're worried about the blood. Blood a Jew can't taste unless, of course, there's a guy there. Now we're going to learn the halachas of nat bar nat. Nat bar nat means flavor which is twice removed. In other words, you have a plate with meat on it. You got rid of the meat. You washed off the dish, but now you have flavor that was imparted from the meat into the dish. So that's once removed. Then you go ahead and you take a hot piece of fish right off the grill and you put it on the plate. The fish absorbs some of the flavor of the meat into it. So that's the second time removed. And now you want to take that piece of fish and eat it with milchiks, machlokes. Shmuel says mutter, not bar nat mutter. And that's how we pass it, not bar nat mutter. But they say that Rav, from a story of Rav, we see that Rav holds that it's also. What was the story? Rav's eye hurt, so they made him a medication, which was very sharp, and they cleaned out the bowl, and they fed him food in that bowl. And Rav said, I could taste the medication. So you see that he holds that not bar nat is also. Says no, maybe medication is made with very strong spices. Now, if you have strong spices, you can taste it. But meat, you don't taste. So the Gemara says they once brought Shmuel nat bar nat, a piece of fish that was on a plate, and they wanted to give it to him with milchiks, and he ate it. And Rebbe Lazar was there, and he didn't eat it. So Shmuel kind of fooled him. He said, your own Rebbe Rav eats this. Later on, Rebbe Lazar met Rav. He said, what, you took it back? So Rav used the lashon, chas l'zar da'av v'rabad l'sfali midelo isfirli. Chas v'sholom, that Shmuel would feed me something that I myself hold is also. In other words, Rashi says, the story never happened. Shmuel just made it up. There's other pshatim as well. Says Gemara, Rav Huna and Rav Chia were both on two sides of a bridge, each one on another side. One was eating nat bar nat, and the other one was eating fruit of milva suda, which we say you have to usually make a bracha rishayna. Rashi says a bracha achrayna as well, and he didn't make either. Not a bracha rishayna, not a achrayna. This one called the other one an orphan, and this one called this one an orphan. In other words, you don't have das, you don't know what your Rebbe said. So this one said, I hold like Shmuel, the nat bar nat is mutter, and this one said, I hold like Rabbi Chia, that saying hamoitzi on bread patters everything, even desserts and fruits, etc. And making a bracha on grape juice, on wine, is patters all the drinks in the suda. La halacha, fish that went on a plate, nat bar nat, is mutter, but a radish that was cut with a fleshik knife is asur to eat milchiks with it because the radish is very sharp. Have a wonderful day.